Is election day with many Americans heading to the polls, but how does election season impact your mental health? Our Catherine Huntley spoke with a psychiatry professor at the University of Vermont.
Unless you've somehow managed to ignore it, you've probably been bombarded by political attacks from both sides leading up to Election Day. But what impact does the polarization have on our mental health? Dr. Steve Schlossman, assistant professor of psychiatry at UVM, joins us now. Steve, thanks for joining us.
Thanks very much for having me.
So you are currently conducting a study with political scientists about how our national political climate affects youth mental health. What have you been finding so far?
So right now we're in the figuring it out phase. The study will be implemented soon. What we're trying to understand, what we call a proof of concept, is whether the current level of political polarization, what some folks call political sectarianism, is associated with overall decrements in youth mental health, or even the increase of psychiatric and psychological challenges for kids. This is based on iterative data across the nation, both anecdotally as well as some data that's been collected. But we would really like to do this in a prospective way, meaning as we go forward with what's likely to be some polarization that will continue even up to and beyond the election, of course. We'd like to see how that affects kids.
Do you have any tips on how parents should be talking to their kids about the election?
Sure. Yeah. So my first tip is if it's developmentally related. So as I say, if your kid wants to talk about it, it's probably a good idea to talk about it. Anything that you say we're not going to talk about, your child's much better at imagining what it is that you're leaving out than whatever it is that you would actually be willing to say to them. But then you need to adjust that to where they are developmentally. A little kid might just need to know that despite tempers going up, parents occasionally yelling at the TV or the press, which I know I've done, regardless of where one sits politically, you might say, hey, I get worked up, but we're okay. Like, things are going to be okay.
What is the effect on adult mental health, and are there things that can be done to help them deal with election anxiety?
So the effects on adult mental health have been well documented. They've been documented before the current increase in polarization, but as you might guess, they've gone up a lot in the last probably 12 years, and certainly since 2020. It's always been an issue in nations other than the United States. It's always been an issue to some extent in the United States. But right now, things are at a heightened pitch, which means that depression, anxiety, those are diagnosable syndromes, are higher, anxiety disorders and depression for adults. And then in addition to that, some of the symptoms of these conditions that don't rise to the level of meeting the criteria for an actual diagnosis are present. So losing sleep, having a hard time focusing, maybe appetite is gone. All of the things that we think about for general mental health challenges, those are more exacerbated right now during this heightened polarization, especially for folks who are politically involved.
Well, great information there, Dr. Schlossman. Thanks for joining us.
Sure. Thank you.